So again, live coverage of the National Economic Dialogue. Again, we have to emphasize it was one of many promises by President John Dramani Mahama in the run-up to the 2024 general elections, when he said, as part of his 120-day promises, he would organize, among others, a National Economic Dialogue. Before this, we had the putting together organization of the Ghana Education Forum. So the National Education Forum took stock of what needs to be done inherently to improve the state of Ghana's education. More importantly, this National Economic Dialogue live at the Accra International Conference Center also is to show that there needs to be stock taken, and already a number of individuals leading a number of groups that will be part of the breakout session for the National Economic Dialogue. This dialogue is supposed to focus on the current state of Ghana's economy, what needs to be done to improve. And it's not only what you are seeing on television, but also an array of personalities who have been put together inside the main conference of the Accra International Conference Center. A number of individuals who have made sure across board, the members of the diplomatic corps receiving invitation, Imani Ghana, the president, Franklin Kujo, leading one of them as part of efforts to ensure that when it comes to conversations for the National Economic Dialogue, the Accra International Conference Center becomes the main venue. The theme is Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together. And among the cross-section of individuals who have been invited are those coming from various sectors of the country, not only from education, but also the energy sector, those in oil and gas, the extractives or mining, as well as the international community. This is supposed to bring everybody together to think all things Ghana, improve the state of the economy, and then what needs to be done. So far, there's every indication, and from the last few events that the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, has spoken at, that Ghana's current debts in excess of 720 billion means that there needs to be some level of policy indication on prudent expenditure that would ensure there's austerity, whilst at the same time strengthening various sections of the economy in order to meet key policy targets of creating jobs for the teeming young people. Already 14.7% of the population unemployed, and those even employed just within the ranges of some 13 million. Many of those 13 plus million employed Ghanaians are working, but outside the main tax bracket or the formal sector. The President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, already has made his way into the conference center, and you can see behind him a number of individuals, including Dr. Ishmael Yankson, the Finance Minister, Dr. Kesiel Atoforsen, and as part of pleasantries, the President of the Republic is taking his time to receive those pleasantries, and foremostly, as is officially done, the national anthem is being played and he's paying obeisance just like all other guests.
Please be seated. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Nana Jinupuku-Ajiman, our Chief Justice, as by law established, her leadership, Justice Gertrude Saki Tokonu, Chairman of Council of State, Honorable Right Edward Do Ajaho, Ministers of State, our revered traditional rulers, our friends from the diplomatic world, members of parliament, and of course our clergy. We welcome you to the National Economic Dialogue 2025. Please put your hands together for yourselves. This is a two-day dialogue put together under the auspices of His Excellency the President as part of a social contract to bring the nation together to chart an economic path for the next 4 years. Mr. President, thank you for bringing us together, and we want to acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Finance in particular, Honorable Kasselatu Forsen, and the chair of the committee that put this together, Mr. Ismail Yamson, for being the two anchors to bring this program together. Let's put our hands together for them. I'd like to now, with respect, invite the chairman of the planning committee, Dr. Ismail Yamson, to open the 2025 National Economic Dialogue with his welcome address. Ladies and gentlemen, let's receive the chairman of the planning committee. It's a long walk to the stage. It's a long walk to economic freedom. So as he walks, let's help with an applause. Thank you, sir, for your leadership. You're welcome.
Good morning, Your Excellency, the President, and Your Excellency, the Vice President. First of all, let me apologize for the very short delay. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Jane Upuku-Agyemang, Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, the Chairman of the Council of State, Chief of Staff of the Office of the President, Chairpersons and General Secretaries of all political parties represented here, Ministers of State and Members of Parliament of the Office of the President, Chairpersons and General Secretaries of all political parties represented here, Ministers of State and Members of Parliament, Heads of Security Agencies, Civil Society Organizations, Friends of the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my greatest pleasure and a singular honor to have the opportunity to chair today's National Economic Dialogue 2025 and to welcome all of you, our distinguished guests, especially His Excellency the President, to the opening session of the two-day event. The theme for the National Economic Dialogue 2025 is resetting Ghana, building the economy we want together. A bold and audacious vision by His Excellency the President to change the course of Ghana's destiny. Our experience in the 68 years of our political independence has not been spectacular, and the time has come to make a fresh start. When the President asked me to chair this dialogue, I agreed without hesitation, because I felt the same way as His Excellency, that Ghana indeed needs its destiny to be urgently reset. Your Excellency, on March 6, 1957, 68 years ago, when I first entered secondary school, the Gold Coast became an independent sovereign state called Ghana. And when Osajbo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah declared that our beloved country Ghana is free forever, he genuinely and passionately believed it. In his brief years of leadership of this country, he demonstrated clearly that he had come to reset Ghana's destiny. His purpose was not just to liberate Ghana politically from colonial domination and exploitation, but to build a self-confident country capable of managing its own affairs politically and economically for the benefit of all its citizens. In his statement of purpose, Dr. Nkrumah declared his selfless ambition to reset Ghana on a completely new economic model, to establish in Ghana a strong and progressive society in which no one, repeat, no one will have any anxiety about the basic needs of life, about work, about food and shelter, where poverty and illiteracy no longer exist. Disease is brought under control, and where our educational facilities provide all the children of Ghana with the best possible opportunity for the development of their potentials. That was Nkrumah's Ghanaian dream, and he executed this vision with passion, backed by clear and credible actions and a selfless devotion to research agenda. The transformation of Ghana was dazzling. Close to 400 vertically integrated agricultural and manufacturing ventures were established in Ghana, with over 40% in rural Ghana. Well-paying jobs were abundant. Unemployment was not known. Graduates left university with jobs waiting for them, and workers happily sang "Work and Happiness" every day at noontime. Sadly, Your Excellency, this period, which I describe as the golden age of Ghana, came to an abrupt end when Nkrumah was overthrown on 24 February 1966, and with that, the Ghana dream died and has since remained a mirage. This is not to suggest, Your Excellency, that the Nkrumah administration was done without its flaws and excesses, but the indisputable fact is that our First Republic still remains the best and only example of real economic transformation from a colonial economy, selfless leadership, and the best example of inclusive growth and development. Today, as we prepare to celebrate 2 days from now, the 68th anniversary of our political independence, Ghana remains under economic domination and servitude, and a poor, highly and unsustainably indebted country. Unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, has become widespread and a security risk, while Ghana is the only country in sub-Saharan Africa that depends most on food imports to feed its people. Our manufacturing sector has collapsed, while hardship is pervasive. And we know why we are where we are today, Your Excellency, and the question. Today, Ghana is characterized by a political mindset motivated by power to loot state coffers for personal gain. Selfishness, arrogance, and impunity by political leaders and public officers. A party-capture political system where the party in opposition chooses to sit on the fence and does everything, even including mislead the people to undermine genuine effort to develop the country. There is no longer love for country. Economic mismanagement, macro instabilities, and macroeconomic impediments to economic transformation. Pervasive institutionalized corruption, brazen greed and graft. Poor governance driven by weak, compromised state institutions. Maximum government with minimum governance. Broken, inefficient, ineffective, and expensive economic and social infrastructure. Failed agricultural policies culminating in overdependence on food imports. Exporters of commodities after 68 years of independence, and an over-reliance on imports of value-added products. A weak and compromised private sector frustrated by the public sector to promote and facilitate corruption. And a large number of state-owned enterprises who churn out losses upon losses every year, destroying the country's productive assets, accumulating debt, destabilizing fiscal performance of the budget, and which, above all, have also become a major source of corruption. Additionally, Your Excellency, we have succeeded in creating a new generation of young people called Generation Hustlers, who have lost hope, respect, and confidence in their political leaders and their country, and just want to leave Ghana behind them and relocate to foreign lands. A very sad spectacle of our once highly revered country. Your Excellency, this is definitely not the Ghana that our forefathers fought for, and definitely not the Ghana that succeeding generations have toiled and hoped for. Your Excellency, someone must reset the destiny of Ghana, and it can only be you. Everywhere in the world that economic transformation has taken place, only one individual has led the charge, and the Lord has blessed you with the wisdom to take on that task. The task to liberate Ghana from economic mismanagement and corruption, to reset Ghana and put it on a path of sustainable and resilient growth, inclusive development and prosperity for all the citizens of the country. Ghanaians, Your Excellency, are tired of poverty and hardship. I must admit, Your Excellency and distinguished guests, that in the last 68 years of independence, Ghana has also suffered severe disruptions and dislocations from external shocks, including the COVID-19 pandemic and major supply chain disruptions following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and now the great disruption originating from the current U.S. administration. We cannot ignore them. But the stark truth is that the overwhelming majority of our problems are homegrown and self-inflicted. Only our leaders and the people of Ghana can and must resolve these problems. Let us take the responsibility of resetting our destiny in our own hands. Your Excellency, the journey to reset Ghana is not going to be easy. It is going to be rough and full of risks and frustrations from within and from outside. However, with the determined leadership that you have promised and ownership from you, you shall succeed. Besides, there are many Ghanaians who are ready to stand with you and to work with you to deliver your bold vision. Like supporters of a well-known football club not to be named, you will never walk alone. This National Economic Dialogue, which you aptly set up as part of a 120-day social contract with the Ghanaian people, among its other objectives, is to set in motion a process of dialogue and consultation on Ghana's present economic development challenges, discuss policy trade-offs, and build consensus around policy reforms that are needed to make Ghana a high, inclusive, and resilient growth economy. It is also intended that the National Economic Dialogue could be structured into a permanent consultative machinery in which the authorities, the private sector, civil society, and international partners regularly discuss socioeconomic and growth challenges, emerging opportunities and risks. Your Excellency, the institutionalization of this process to advance your research agenda will be key to success. There are some who have already concluded that this is also going to be yet another talk shop, and that there will be no follow-through actions. Hence, the commitment to institutional dialogue should be prioritized to take away these doubts. After this plenary session, there shall be 6 breakout sessions which shall take critical look at 6 of the most pressing issues facing Ghana. And by the close of tomorrow, the dialogue will present concrete proposals to assist government with the execution of the reset agenda in order to reshape the future of our country's destiny. Your Excellency, permit me to reiterate that the task of resetting Ghana cannot be delayed. There is no option. We delay it at our own peril. As Brutus says, in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in the miseries. That time is now, and the opportunity is here. Failure to act cannot be an option. This bold vision to reset Ghana should rewrite the history of Ghana and Africa and give the future generations to come a lasting hope in our country and in our continent. Finally, Your Excellency, allow me once again to welcome you and the Vice President and all our distinguished invited guests to the 2025 National Economic Dialogue in Accra. I thank you for your attention.
I guess the spontaneity of the applause shows the quality of the work. Let's do it one more time. And Mr. Chair did not work alone. He had a 7-member committee that worked with him. So now that I have the President's attention, let me acknowledge the members of his committee. Dr. K.Y. Amuakun, founding President of ASSET, was also on the committee that worked with Dr. Yamson. Let's acknowledge Dr. K.Y. Amuakun. And the rest of the committee, Nelly Miriku, Professor Gachi, Anthony Sapong, Mohammed Samara, Ernest de Graft Ejir, and Chairman of NDBC, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Let's put our hands together for all of them. To demonstrate the truly national nature of this event, I'd like to acknowledge a few more groups. We'd like to specially welcome and acknowledge the Council of State, led by their chair, the Right Honorable Edward Kobido Ajaho, and the newly minted members of the Council of State. If they can arise so we see them. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for your interest in national development. Mr. President, almost all your ministers are here. There's also a strong delegation from Parliament. We want to acknowledge all the ministers and MPs who are here. Let's put our hands together for all of them. Thank you. We have captains of industry from the private sector, too many to mention. If you're a captain of industry, give us a wave so we acknowledge you properly. Thank you very much indeed. We also have civil society here as well. So civil society leaders, please rise so we acknowledge you. This is a very important part of the discourse. Thank you. As earlier hinted, our traditional authorities are here, and they are here in their numbers. We acknowledge our Togbe Mamao Nime Name for your continued support. Let's put our hands together for all our revered traditional leaders. This is not an exhaustive list. We'll do the rest as we proceed. We'd like to now do a bit of history. It is often said that those who do not learn history are bound to repeat it. So I'd like to now invite a member of the committee who is also a former head of the Economic Commission for Africa and the founder and president emeritus of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, to draw lessons from Ghana's political economic history to set the stage for the future we want. Ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to give to you Dr. K.Y. Amuakun. Please put your hands together for him. As I said, Nelson Mandela said it's a long walk to freedom. So it's a very long walk. If we can just support with a longer applause. Thank you, KY, for your hard work for Ghana.
Your Excellency, the President of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, members of the Planning Committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, all protocols observed. It is my great pleasure and honor to be with you today to help set the scene for our National Economic Dialogue. As many of you know, I've spent my entire career, more than 50 years, in African development. I've had the honor and privilege of working closely with policymakers and leaders across the continent. I'm a proud Pan-Africanist, but first and foremost, I'm a proud Ghanaian. I was 13 years at the time of independence. I grew up with Ghana and have lived through our post-colonial journey, the ups and downs, our successes and failures. My assignment today is to reflect on Ghana's political economy since independence and draw key lessons from our journey to help us forge the road ahead. I'm grateful for the opportunity and hopeful that what we learn over the next 2 days would allow us as citizens, with you at the helm, Your Excellency the President, to truly create the Ghana we want. Nearly 20 years ago, I had the privilege of delivering 3 speeches in the R.P. Balfour Memorial Lecture Series at University, the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. During the first speech, I laid out a vision for a transformed Ghana, a Ghana that by 2030 would match where Malaysia stood in 2005. This meant a 10-fold increase in per capita income, a rise in life expectancy from 57 to 73 years, and a future where 9 out of 10 Class 1 pupils will reach Class 5 instead of 2 out of 3. A Ghana where higher education flourished, with 40% of students going to University and similar institutions to study science, math, and engineering, contributing to the world stock of scientific knowledge and becoming research and managers of our economy. A Ghana where close linkages between government, firms, universities, and other vocational institutes will ensure that the skills students acquire will be more relevant to the current and future demands in the labor market, allowing unemployment rates to fall to just 3% from the estimate of about 20% at the time. I and many of you here have echoed similar visions for decades, a vision that has not yet been realized. I recently read the World Bank's World Development Report on the middle income trap. The report presents a sobering analysis of the challenges confronting nations like ours. It found out that while many countries have progressed from low income to middle income status since 1990, a staggering 108 nations, including Ghana, are stuck in lower middle income category, struggling to break through to higher income status. We may feel a bit of relief in knowing that we are not alone in the struggle to innovate, industrialize, and integrate into global value chains. But we must break this cycle. Ghana's gross national income per capita sat stagnant at less than $400 for almost 40 years. Between 1962 and 1999, but since 2000, it has increased to about $2,400. This begs the question, why have we stalled? And how can we make today's effort count, recognizing that economic transformation takes decades, not years? But it should not take another 50 years for Ghana to become an upper middle income country. And I hope that President Mahama's reset would include raising our ambitions. We can and must become a developed economy in the next 20 years. It is my firm belief that success hinges on 3 things: visionary leadership, policy continuity and consistency, and a shared responsibility between citizens and their government. Our leaders must possess the vision, skill, and determination to turn political aspirations into economic growth, inclusive prosperity, and lasting human well-being. As we've just said, Kwame Nkrumah embodied all these characteristics. We will do well to learn from his unparalleled record of leadership and vision as we face similar challenges today. On Nkrumah's leadership, Kwesi Botwe, of blessed memory, a friend and mentor to many of us in this room today, and one of our country's longest-serving finance ministers, once reflected that Nkrumah's imprint remains everywhere, in the macroeconomic and real sectors of Ghana's economy, in the banking and insurance industries, and in the country's basic infrastructure. Nkrumah believed in bold, transformative projects, and nothing exemplified this more than the Volta River project. It was the centerpiece of his strategy to industrialize Ghana's economy, providing the energy needed to boost factories, boost industry, and accelerate economic transformation. To me, Kwame Nkrumah was ahead of his time, and the inspiration he engendered and the vision he set forth were unmatched in African history. On January 2022, 1996, Nkrumah inaugurated the Volta River massive Akosombo Dam, calling it his greatest dreams. 1 month later, he was deposed in a military coup. It may not be fortuitous that this national economic dialogue is taking place on days sandwiched tightly between that of Nkrumah's overthrow and our independence anniversary a few days from today. Kwame Nkrumah's spirit clearly is with us here today. In any case, what followed Nkrumah's overthrow was 15 years of political instability and economic mismanagement, marked by a destructive cycle of coups. When General Rawlings' military regime took over in 1981, Ghana was in a crisis. To his credit, Rawlings stabilized the government after a couple of years, and before long, the economy started to recover. In his address to the opening of the third session of Parliament in 1985, Rawlings presented the first step of Ghana Vision 2020, a framework, quote, to realize the long-term vision of raising Ghana to the ranks of the middle-income countries of the world. At the time, the policy reforms pursued by the government were beginning to stabilize the economy. However, Ghanaians demanding a return to civilian rule rightfully pushed back against the authoritarianism and human rights abuses of the military regime. In response, Rawlings agreed to hold democratic elections in 1992, ushering in Ghana's Fourth Republic. But Rawlings remained skeptical. He feared that economic gains and stability could be compromised by premature democratization, but ultimately had little choice. The move to multi-party democracy system in 1992 split and crystallized our political landscape into two dominant political parties, the National Democratic Congress, or the NDC, and the new Patriotic Party, the NPP. This is where long-term, collectively held vision for Ghana's future began to unravel, and where policy continuity and consistency started to fade. The two parties have traded off the presidency and power with regularity, with the latest transition taking place just 2 months ago. These transfers have been peaceful, earning Ghana the reputation of a beacon of democracy in Africa and increasingly in the world. But our frequent transfers of power, no matter how peaceful, are not anchored in the long-term and widely shared vision for our economic transformation. Rather, they have come with interruptions in policy direction and programs, fragmented development efforts, wasted money, and a lack of sustained economic momentum. Intense political polarization has pushed us further and further apart when progress depends on working closer together. This brings me to the third necessary element for our future success: a shared responsibility between citizens and their government. I applaud President John Mahama's vision of resetting Ghana for jobs, accountability, and prosperity as a bold framework to help propel us forward. The next 4 years present a crucial window to lay a strong foundation for the Ghana we want in 2050. The 120-day social contract that President Mahama has laid before us identifies many concrete actions that will help us move forward towards our goals. But a contract can only exist between two or more people or two or more parties. Neither the government nor the people can achieve our vision for a transformed Ghana alone. We as Ghanaian citizens have a responsibility to take up the mantle of accountability and progress if we want to see lasting change. And based on my experience, I must admit, I am concerned, but I'm also hopeful. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as many of you know, 3 years ago, under my leadership, the African Center for Economic Transformation, in collaboration with Ghana's leading think tanks, policy institutes, and civil society organizations, launched the Compass for Ghana's Political and Economic Transformation, commonly known as the Ghana Compact. Our goal is clear: to identify the structural barriers hindering Ghana's transformation and to define the future we, as Ghanaians, aspire to by 2050. This effort is rooted in a fundamental democratic principle: ultimate power lies with the people. Ghana's transformation depends on its citizens setting a bold vision for the nation and holding governments accountable and themselves accountable for delivering on that vision. The Compass addressed some of our most pressing policy issues. There are 7 core thematic areas: national development planning, fiscal responsibility, youth education and skills, gender equality, private sector development, health and climate change. The Compact is built on analysis from Ghana's leading minds and institutions. It is informed by consultation with all major political parties, traditional and religious leaders, and the cross-section of Ghanaian visionaries. And it fully reflects engagement with citizens across 10 regions of our country to ensure these recommendations are grounded in the daily realities of Ghanaians of all backgrounds. All this effort culminated in the Citizens' Convention in June 2024 at the University of Ghana. It brought together 500 people representing the various stakeholders associated with the Ghana Compact. We convened to create a citizen declaration of a social contract with the government of Ghana, or the expectation to guide governance in our country as we approach the 100th year of our independence in 2057. For each of the 7 thematic areas of the Compact that I mentioned, a set of targets and key actions to achieve them by 2030 was also identified. The Convention agreed that a robust accountability mechanism must underpin such a transformation agenda. not merely a monitoring tool, but a fundamental framework designed to ensure that the commitments enshrined in the social contract are realized. Such a mechanism will be a way to track, evaluate, and ensure that the fulfillment of these commitments will foster a stronger democratic process, enhance transparency, and rebuild trust between the government and its citizens. Importantly, the compact emphasizes the obligations of all of us as citizens in moving towards a transformed Ghana, underpinned by values such as patriotism, loyalty, honesty, and integrity, as well as civic education that starts early and is adequately funded. At the heart of this, to me, is a shift in our mindset to embrace the African personality that Kwame Nkrumah dreamt of more than 40 years ago when he said, Africa needs a new type of citizen, a dedicated, modest, honest, informed man, a man who submerges himself in the service of nation and mankind, a man who abhors greed and detests vanity, a new type of man whose humility is his strength and whose integrity is his greatest. I'm sure that if Kwame Nkrumah were with us here today, he will be saddened to see how far we have strayed from this vision. I share his disappointment. But I also know that we can turn this around. And please, allow me to add that I'm grateful to everyone who has engaged in the compact process thus far, allowing us to bring concrete citizen-driven solutions to our administration to complement its swift efforts to correct the course we are in. And of course, we will continue our partnership, particularly with the National Demand Planning Commission, under the leadership of the veteran Neil Moore Thompson. Excellencies, I have shared where we have come from, and with the rest of my time today, I would like to look forward, taking lessons from our history and from the Ghana Compact process to help inform what we do next. I will start by highlighting 4 critical areas where the Ghana Compact in the coming months can help take forward the recommendations from this National Economic Dialogue and support the goals and objectives of President Mahama's reset agenda. First is on governance. We need a code of good governance to enhance transparency and accountability in government operations, particularly in procurement and auditing, while fostering active citizen engagement in governance process. The second is on campaign and political party financing. The increasing monetization of our politics has driven incidents of party capture and pervasive corruption, as well as cronyism, leading to poor service delivery and accountability. This is the elephant in the room that we seldom see or talk about at meetings such as the one we are having here today and tomorrow. The third is the fight against galamsey. Today, 60% of our major water bodies are polluted. The most visible consequence of galamsey or illegal mining. But the environmental catastrophe runs deeper than polluted rivers. A 2022 report by the Center for Democratic Development named illegal mining as one of the primary sources of illicit funding for election campaigns and political party financing. And the fourth is the overarching goal of transformation. If we are to reach a middle income status in 20 years or less, we must grow our economy into a highly diversified one that is competitive in export markets, is highly productive in the use of labor and capital, and deploys enhanced technology towards improved well-being of our people. In about 6 months, the Ghana Compact will convene the second Citizens Convention to assess the progress we are making. We also review a public online dashboard to be created in collaboration with the NDPC that will track development progress, including social contract commitments and later government action over the long term, extending beyond this government to future administration. So let me offer the Compact as a platform for engagement between policymakers and citizens going forward. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I yield the floor to the Finance Minister, I must raise one final forward-looking issue that I am sure is on the minds of President Mahama and Honorable Arthur Forson: how to sustainably finance our transformation. We find ourselves in repeated budget freeze and debt crisis. Our green to trade offs that have eroded our middle class and put our most vulnerable citizens even more at risk. As we approach the conclusion of our 17th IMF bailout early next year, the fundamental question remains: will this be the last, or are we simply paving the way for an 18th bailout or a 19th? Remember, Ghana has had IMF programs for 40 of its 68 years since independence. Therefore, going forward, we must think and act differently about the mix of external financing and domestic resources that are so critical to our development. Let me illustrate with an example. The total amount of $1.7 billion programmed as support from the World Bank and the IMF this year is less than what we spent to subsidize our long-failing electricity sector. It is a staggering comparison. Still, external financing will be an essential piece of our development for the foreseeable future. And this is not without precedence. The East Asian miracle would not have been possible without foreign assistance. Take South Korea, for example. In the 30 years between 1946 and 1976, it received near $6 billion from the U.S. alone, a huge amount at the time, with very few conditions that allowed the country to define and pursue a homegrown vision and a strategy of its own. Today, South Korea is one of the world's largest economies. But the global landscape is shifting, and we need to shift with this. Recent policy shifts, including those of the Trump administration in the U.S. and other several European countries, have introduced uncertainties into the prevailing development aid architecture. Above all, the global financial architecture is failing to meet Africa's needs. It needs a fundamental overhaul to be fit for purpose for today. Ghana has been part of a strong coalition of countries, institutions, and advocates pushing for African priorities in the global financial system. The coalition has had some success, but we must not wait for the world to
fund our own problem for us, so that our dependence on external finance does not continue to hold us back. Our private sector can be a key contributor, as instruments such as blended finance and public-private partnerships offer great untapped potential. And remittances from the Ghana diaspora have consistently outstripped ODA and FDI flows for many years. Now, underscoring the importance in our financing mix. The upshot of all this is that Ghana needs a comprehensive financing strategy, one that effectively aligns different funding sources to our vision for economic transformation. Such a strategy should include three fundamentals. First, a Ghana Development Finance Platform that will coordinate the flow of development assistance to Ghana, including assessing the progress we are making in our policy reforms and programs, and ensuring that resources are not duplicated, wasted, or misaligned with our developmental vision. Second, a long-term agreement with our major external partners. A particular instructive example of this is the World Bank's agreement with Pakistan. The bank has committed to providing $20 billion in financial support over 10 years, a shift from the traditional short-term partnership approach used in Ghana and other countries. The basis for this longer-term approach in Pakistan is the realization that after the recent crisis, the country needs to break away from its past pattern of stop-and-go reform cycles and instead commit to a credible, more stable developmental course. Third, a comprehensive domestic revenue mobilization plan that curbs illicit financial flows, harnesses remittances, and ensure fair taxation to fuel our public service and investment in our own progress. The overall goal of this strategy will be to mobilize significant increased financing coupled with rigorous expenditure management in the next 10 years to support our development, underpinned by a strong accountability mechanism. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I hope that over the next 2 days, our discussion will focus on concrete policy reforms, institutional strengthening, the strategic investment to stabilize the economy, drive growth, and create jobs in the medium to long term. I applaud President Mahama for putting the dialogue together at a critical moment in his administration. Drive growth and create jobs in the medium to long term. I applaud President Mahama for putting the dialogue together at a critical moment in his administration. I'm honored to have been able to contribute to the National Economic Dialogue Committee's work as one of its 8 members. And I salute you, Ishmael, for the outstanding job you have done as chairman of the committee in such a short time. Finally, let me mention Rishi Sharma, an author, fund manager, and columnist for the Financial Times, who wrote a book in 2013 called Breakout Nations, and predicted the countries that will become the next economic miracles by 2050. African country made the list. Not South Africa, not Nigeria. Therefore, my question for all of us is a simple one. What would it take for Ghana to become a breakout nation by 2050? It is my hope that this National Economic Dialogue will provide the roadmap. Thank you for your attention.
Please put your hands together for Dr. K.Y. Amoako for that comprehensive background to this very important summit. And I like the fact that you all applauded when he asked the question, will Ghana be in the list? And I think the answer is yes, if we do the right things here. Let's dance it up for him one more time. Thank you, Doc. We really appreciate your work. We're still here live at the 2025 National Economic Dialogue, and Dr. Amoako gave us 3 strategies: visionary leadership, policy consistency, and shared responsibility between citizens and leaders, which is why we're all gathered here. There are also 3 objectives for today's program. The first is to communicate the true state of Ghana's economy to stakeholders. That is what the subject of the next presentation would be. So I'd like to now welcome the Minister of Finance and MP for Ejumaku Enyan Esiem, the Honorable, he's not the main uncle Atu. There's an older uncle Atu, but he's the brother Atu. KCL Atu Forsen, to present to us the true state of Ghana's economy. Please put your hands together. So you are brother Atu. Since Uncle Atu is still there. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Ladyship, the Chief Justice, our Chairman of the Council of State, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, other members of the Organizing Committee, members of the Diplomatic Committee, and fellow countrymen and women, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this August gathering. Your presence here is a testament to your love for country and the resilience of our collective unity and purpose. This is an ample demonstration of our ability to put aside our differences when the national duty calls and binds us together in search for answers to the problems that confront us as a country. Today's gathering and the subsequent consensus that will be forged from these stimulating discussions will follow and will lend us the opportunity to be able to put together a policy that will guide all of us. This is a proof to the old saying that adwen onyinimpa kronitrim, to wit, knowledge does not reside in the head of one person. I wish to acknowledge the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, Elder Statesman Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and the distinguished members of the committee for working tirelessly to put together this important dialogue. It is with great anticipation that we embark on this first national economic dialogue in over a decade, a pivotal moment in our national history. This dialogue is not only a significant and defining moment, but it's also an important reenactment of our history when the nation assembled at a similar forum in Senchi some 10 years ago. Today, we set out to attempt to resolve economic puzzle of much greater magnitude and scale than those that confronted us some 10 years ago. This dialogue is therefore an opportunity to reflect on our economic reality, address the pressing challenges, and chart a course towards a more prosperous future for our citizens. It is my hope and prayer that the lessons that will emerge from these conversations will guide our steps, and that we may not repeat the mistakes of recent past. The panel discussions, workshops, and breakout sessions have been carefully designed to confront the present economic challenges of our time. The resultant prescriptions and the critical policy initiatives will drive structural reforms and our transformation agenda to reset our economy and secure the prosperity of our citizens. Mr. Chairman, as we embark on this development of our medium-term plans, commencing with the forthcoming budget on March 11th, the insight, expertise, and experiences will be garnered from these deliberations will prove very invaluable assets that will shape our collective path for our future. In this time of crisis, it is very imperative that we acknowledge the significant toll that has been borne by every Ghanaian, particularly the poor, from severe currency depreciation to hyperinflation, from haircuts to steep tax increases, from rising inflation, from rising fuel costs to rising electricity prices, and very increasing interest rates. Fellow countrymen and women, the economic crisis isn't over. Indeed, the full length of our current crisis is still unraveling by the day. The situation requires significant sacrifice from all of us to stem the bleeding and place our economy back on the right trajectory. I'm pleased to note that His Excellency the President has taken the lead and has given the strongest signal to our commitment to sacrifice. In furtherance to his commitment, we have streamlined and realigned the size of government, evidenced by the reduction of ministers of state to 60 from the initial 123 and later to 88 ministers. We have followed. This we have also followed with significant budget cuts that will be announced soon for the office of the President, and further prohibition of the first-class travels by all government officials. These actions represent merely the initial steps in our ongoing journey towards fiscal discipline and good governance. Mr. Chairman, let me seize this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organized labor and the Ghana Employers Association for their understanding and collaboration in search of an agreement concerning the minimum wage and base pay. I wish at this point to reaffirm to labor that the NDC government, headed by His Excellency President Mahama, will commit to transparency, accountability, and good governance. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would now crave your indulgence to take you to a presentation on the state of the Ghanaian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be taking you to only 4 chapters: the growth trajectory, the long-term trends, and the urgent need for us to reset, the fiscal challenges we face, and the opportunities to reset, and I'll make some proposal for the way forward. Your Excellency, truth be told, the causes of the 2022 macroeconomic crisis can be traced well before COVID-19 and the deterioration of global economic conditions. In fact, when these shocks struck, the Ghanaian economy was already in a very precarious state. Ghana has experienced a strong growth since 2000s, beginning 2000. Strong economic growth over the past decades placed Ghana in the top 10 fastest growing countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, reaching middle income status in the year 2011. Between the year 2008 to 2019, Ghana's economy expanded by about 6.8% per year, above regional and global averages of 4.4% and 2.7% respectively. GDP per capita doubled, averaging 3% growth per year. However, the growth was driven by oil and mining, accompanied by huge debt accumulation. Oil production began in the year 2011 and contributed steadily to economic growth, representing 5% of GDP on average. Moreover, between the year 2013 and 2019, nearly 20% of GDP growth was directly attributed to mining, in fact, gold mining. Simultaneously, the growth acceleration was sustained by increased fiscal imbalances, which fueled debt accumulation. The fiscal deficit averaged about 4% of GDP between the year 2008 and 2019, more than twice as much as in the year 2000, between 2000 and 2007. Public debt went from 20% of GDP after HIPIC in the year 2006 to 93% at the central government level in the year 2022. Although these factors led to increased vulnerabilities to the commodity prices and shocks, Ghana failed to take action. The growth, as we have seen, has not translated into structural transformation and productivity. There has been very limited progress in structural transformation, with the agriculture sector still representing 1/5 of GDP and also 1/3 of the labor force, about 33%. Manufacturing productivity remains relatively low, and higher productivity sectors in industry, such as commercial mining and construction, Employing few people, the informal sector and self-employment have absorbed a large share of the labor force, even among the higher income quintiles. This is contrary to what we've seen in some advanced countries and medium-sized countries. Ghana's export basket has remained concentrated in simple products with low value addition. The economy is dominated by primary products with limited value addition, which restrict the potential for economic diversification and growth. Ghana's top 3 exports, gold, crude oil, and cocoa, accounted for 85.1% of the country's total export in the year 2024. High productivity manufacturing is relatively small and has not exploited the opportunities that we have with ECOWAS, AGUA, EPA, and AFTA. This reliance on primary commodities highlights the need for strategic effort to diversify the economy and reduce dependency on a narrow range of products, taking advantage of global value chain. Your Excellency, unfortunately, income inequalities has progressively worsened. Inequalities across regions persist due to lack of economic convergence, disparities in service delivery, and environmental degradation. Poverty rate in Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region remains above 50%. Rapid urbanization has led to rising disparities within cities. Although urban poverty rates have dropped over the last decade, the number of urban poor has not increased at all. Poverty is more prevalent in lower elevated slums, where communities experience higher fertility, lower school attendance, very low access to sanitary services, and vulnerable to natural disaster. In the year 2024, Ghana's inequality was worse than Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and other neighboring countries, unfortunately. I'll now take you to long-term trends and the urgent need for us to reset. Your Excellency, the current growth model will not be sufficient to meet Ghana's needs and aspirations if nothing is done. And it will mean that we have to take urgent steps to correct this trend. Ghana needs to take advantage of its demographic dividend. With 500,000 young people joining the labor force each year, 500,000. Within the current growth model, growth will reduce to only 3.8%, which represents 2.4% GDP per capita in less than 15 years from now. There's an urgent need to implement ambitious reforms to reset the economy in the next 4 years. Otherwise, we'll go down in terms of growth. Transforming Ghana's economic growth from one based on factor accumulation and natural resource depletion to one driven by productivity and human capital is very critical. Economic growth can be sustained over 6.5% of GDP, fully offsetting headwinds from demographic trends and the decline in natural resource depletion if we are to adjust from the current baseline situation. Your Excellency, the graph on the left-hand side shows the baseline situation from now to the year 2050 using the baseline and where the growth will be. We've adjusted for moderate reforms and we have also adjusted for ambitious reforms. The moderate reforms will largely mean that we will have to quickly bring on stream the Pecan field, and that will adjust from where we are and improve the growth trend. Whereas ambitious reforms will mean we'll have to do a lot more than adjusting from the Pecan oil fields. Without comprehensive reforms, unfortunately, Ghana will only achieve upper middle income status after the year 2050. And we cannot wait till the year 2050 before we become an upper middle income country. There's an urgent need for comprehensive policies and institutional reforms that enhance productivity, improve the quality of infrastructure, services, and elevate human capital and workforce skills. These reforms have the potential of transforming Ghana within a generation, tripling its per capita income by the year 2050. There is the need to reorient fiscal policy to support the growth and structural transformation. Your Excellency, again, the graph at the left-hand side shows the baseline and the moderate reforms and ambitious reforms. Unfortunately, looking at where we are going, if nothing is done, Ghana will only become an upper middle income country in the year 2050. With moderate reforms, we'll be able to become an upper middle income country in the year 2042. But if we are to do well and introduce very ambitious reforms, Ghana will indeed become an upper middle income country before the year 2038. And we have no choice. We will have to introduce measures to reset our economy. There's an urgent need for economic transformation to reset Ghana. And we have 7 chapters to reset our economy. Chapter 1 is resetting the economy and creating prosperity for all. Chapter 2 is jobs for all. Chapter 3 is Ghana's framework for industrial revitalization, support and transformation. We call it the Ghana First. The 4th one will be powering growth through infrastructure development. 5, investing in people for inclusive growth. 6, restoring good governance and combating corruption. And 7, deepening international relations and foreign policy so that Ghana can benefit from economic diplomacy. Your Excellency, we face fiscal challenges, and indeed there are opportunities to support this reset. First, I will take you through public expenditure, other words called public spending. The fiscal space, as we speak, is constrained by high interest rates, high energy subsidies, and mounting rigidities. Government expenditure grew faster than GDP over the past 8 years. Non-discretionary spending severely limited the fiscal space due to high wage bill, high energy subsidy, ballooning interest payment, spending indiscipline, and weak expenditure controls, including commitment. These categories of non-discretionary expenditures, namely public sector wages, interest payment, earmark funds, account for about 70% of Ghana's total expenditure. All these expenses crowd out expenditure for capital purposes, capital expenditure. Social spending has been very low and is often misused. The National Health Insurance Scheme faces financing shortfalls and also misuse of resources. So the problem with National Health Insurance is not only with the financing shortfalls, but also with misuse of resources. Financing shortfalls for National Health Insurance. The National Health Insurance no longer receives its full National Health Insurance levy as approved by law due to the Capping Act. Additionally, resources increasingly diverted towards non-core activities, and this hinders efficiency. Today, less than 60% of the National Health Insurance budget goes to non-claim payment. And you could see that in the year 2008, from the graph, we used to use 86% of the National Health Insurance budget for the purposes of claim payment. This has reduced to about 58%. In fact, in the year 2022, it went down to about 50%. Public spending also on education is inefficient and skewed towards secondary and tertiary levels. Only about 1/4 of government education spending goes to pre-primary and primary levels. Most funds go to staff compensation leaving little for classroom materials and infrastructure improvement. And you could see how our education budget is skewed, also from the graph from the right-hand side. Your Excellency, infrastructure spending, again, is highly inefficient and mostly uncompleted. Even a small improvement in spending efficiency could lead to significant progress in infrastructure quality. For example, an increase in efficiency to match best performing emerging markets would deliver about 20% improvement in the quality of Ghana's road. Spreading resources on too many projects without completion has become the problem of Ghana. For example, Agenda 111, where $400 million have been spent in the last 4 years without a single hospital in operation, with about $1.5 billion needed for completion. The amount spent of $400 million could have completed a minimum of 22 district hospitals instead of spreading yourself too thin. Maintenance is indeed cheaper than new infrastructure, but funds to road maintenance is also inadequate and often misused. Another example is only 41% of our primary roads were in good shape in the year 2021. Funds for road maintenance cover only 45% of maintenance needs. And this 45% of funds that has been allocated for road maintenance are often used for development instead of maintenance. And so you could see that most of our roads are deteriorating. Your Excellency, the energy sector in Ghana has become a ticking time bomb, costing about 2% of GDP every year. The objectives of the energy sector recovery program are completely off track. Fixing the sectors require radical measures. High generational costs due to lack of competition and limited renewable capacity in the energy mix is a problem. High distribution and collection losses at ECG. High distribution and collection losses at ECG is also a problem. Currently, only 62% of total energy purchased by ECG is collected. And even out of this 62%, 65% of that amount is used to pay for supplies through the cash water fall mechanism. Unfortunately, 35% of the ECG's revenue is used to take care of ECG themselves over things that they don't actually require. Non-cost reflective tariffs. About 50% of cost of service provision is a matter for us to discuss. However, I still maintain that tariffs should not be used to reward ECG's inefficiencies and other inefficiencies in the system. Unpaid legacy arrests at end of year 2022 was $1.3 billion. Annual cumulative sector shortfall in 2024 stood at $2.2 billion, despite government transfer of $2.1 billion in the year 2023 and 2024. Projected cumulative financial shortfalls for energy sector is over $9 billion by the year 2026. And this is without any intervention, and if we assume business as usual. This simply means we have to take action, and the action. Cocoa production has dropped nearly 50% over the past 3 years. The 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board would not be able to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa contracts. Existing forward sales contracts locked in lower prices than current market rates. Revenue losses of $840 million for both Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer as a result of what is happening at Ghana Cocoa Board. Additionally, about $500 million losses for rollover contract was achieved in the last year. The market prices and differentials is what aids smuggling. Large gap between market price and farmers' payment encouraged smuggling and threatened long-term sustainability. This implies that for every ton of cocoa delivered this year, in fulfillment of the rollover contract, Ghana Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer would lose $4,000 per ton in revenue. No wonder we are unable to offer the cocoa farmer the right price, because every ton delivered because of the rollover contract, $4,000 has been lost. And so the government is unable to offer enough for the cocoa farmer. And this is what is actually leading to the smuggling of cocoa beans to our neighboring countries, Togo and Ivory Coast. Cocoa Board's extra budgetary spending is also a major fiscal risk. Total debt at the Ghana Cocoa Board is 32.5 billion, of which 9.7 billion is due to be paid at the end of September 2025, this year. Outstanding cocoa road contract reached 21 billion, in fact, $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only 4.4 billion accounted for in Cocoa Board financial statement. Supplier arrest is difficult to quantify because of lack of transparency and has become a major concern to industries. Your Excellency, the elephant in the room. SOEs and joint ventures company showing mounting operational and financial risk. Almost all state-owned enterprises are in the red. Almost all of them are in the red. From the Electricity Company of Ghana to the Agricultural Development Bank. Almost all of them are in the red. In fact, beginning from the year 2021, 2022, and 2023, you will see that Cocoa Board posed some profit of 2.2 billion in the year 2023. But Your Excellency, this is artificial profit. This profit is because they failed to service their debt because of the debt suspension. And so all the cocoa bills that were due at the time, they failed to pay because of debt suspension. Subsequently, this debt still exists, and so we will need to take action to restructure most of the state-owned enterprises. Fiscal challenges and opportunity to support, and the need for us to talk about revenue now. We can't develop if we fail to generate resources internally. Your Excellency, Ghana has not performed well in revenue mobilization compared to its peers. Ghana's domestic revenue mobilization has stagnated in the last decade and remained below our peers. Ghana collected 13.5% of GDP in revenue, tax revenue. Collection from other major taxes remain low, especially value-added tax, as compared to our peers. Numerous exemptions and complexity of tax system have a detrimental impact on revenue. Tax administration challenges also contribute to compliance gap. And I have two different graphs, the one on total tax revenue and the one we need to take action, the value-added tax. You could see the long line, the yellow line, dotted line, and the dotted red, representing where Ghana is and where our peers are. When you look at the other one, the value-added tax, where Ghana is and where our peers are, clearly shows that Ghana is lagging behind in the collection of tax revenue and, most significantly, value-added tax. This will mean we need urgent reforms to rationalize our value-added tax regime. Currently, it has been distorted, and as a result, there is very little compliance. The VAT gap is huge. Last year, GRA programmed to increase the VAT effort by 32%. Unfortunately, they ended up doing 17%, clearly below inflation, and that should tell you that there is a significant problem. The fiscal cost of tax exemption calls for rationalization, whilst mitigating the impact on the poor. The Tax Exemption Act in the year 2022 set out clear criteria and guidance, but other legislations introduced further tax incentives that deviate from the national tax benchmark. Tax exemptions from VAT, PIT, and import duties are estimated to generate a loss of about 3.9% of GDP. This amount does not include corporate income tax exemptions. While this exemption often offers some relief, they are costly, in fact, very costly, and they create leakages, complexity, and distortions in the tax system. The largest source in VAT foregone revenue is the VAT exemption on supply of dwellings and land, representing 33% of our overall cost. But to be fair, VAT on dwellings, VAT on real estate was introduced in the year 2023 by the previous administration. Unfortunately, getting to the year 2024 during the elections, they decided to abandon it because of elections. Your Excellency, the truth is that the tax exists, but it was abandoned ahead of the election. And that alone will mean we will have to close the gap immediately. Ghana was not sufficiently capitalized. Your Excellency, this point is extremely important. Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We struggle to leverage on our natural wealth, capturing its rent and channeling it towards productivity, infrastructure, and human capital. Natural resource rent simply means the difference between revenue of a commodity and the cost of producing that very commodity. Currently, the rent is 14% of Ghana's GDP. Unfortunately, fiscal revenue from extractive industries are around 1.5% of GDP because we failed to fully capture the economic rent from our natural resources. Simply put, whilst extractive industry is enjoying a rent of 14%, Ghana has not been able to take advantage of the rent. All what I want to say is that, can we take advantage and take 1% of the 14% rent as a country to support our development in infrastructure and also human capital? Fiscal challenges and opportunities, Your Excellency, with their other considerations outside taxes, expenditures, and financing. And the other considerations are institutional reforms and corresponding policy directions that will need to guide us. The fiscal rule. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018 failed to contain debt accumulation, the very reason why we set up the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Lack of enforcement and credibility issues, limited counter-cyclical flexibility in the law were the problems. SOE reforms are urgently required. Poorly performed SOEs in energy and agriculture sectors burden public finances, growing fiscal risk from contingent liability and quasi-fiscal operations that we need to address. And to be straight, the non-performing SOEs in energy, I'm referring to ECG, and non-performing SOE in agriculture, I'm referring to Ghana Cocoa Board. Your Excellency, the PFM and procurement systems urgently need to be upgraded in order for us to achieve a long-term fiscal discipline, because currently they are becoming quite outmoded, and there's the need for us to restore it. Border macroeconomic framework. Containing high inflation and stabilizing the cedi is key for fiscal action and growth. Inflation remains stubborn, around 23% since May 2024. Climate issues such as drought in key agriculture areas and delayed rainfall have harmed production, while supply chain challenges have further impacted on food costs. High inflation reduces cost of living and worsens food insecurity, particularly for the most vulnerable. Tight monetary policy stance is essential to control inflationary limits, reduce risk premium, and improve credit to to private sector and encourage exchange rate stability is essential to contain the debt service and pass-through of import prices. Your Excellency, the recent reduction in T-bills alone is saving Ghana about $1 billion, 1 billion Ghana cedis. And that 1 billion Ghana cedis can be channeled to critical areas of the economy. And clearly, we need to take steps to reduce the borrowing and also reduce the cost of borrowing so that we'll be able to channel the dividend to support our national development. I now move to the way forward and conclude. Fiscal policy in the past 8 years has been very ineffective. As a result, the macroeconomic situation remains very fragile. It is imperative that we build a momentum for reforms. The quality of adjustment will be key to support growth and protect the poor and most vulnerable. Your Excellency, we have 7 focus areas: enhancing domestic revenue mobilization, balancing equity, simplicity, and efficiency, pursuing a quantitative fiscal consolidation, ring-fencing growth, enhancing spending, and social spending is the second focus item. The third is ensuring compliance with public financial management and public procurement laws, implementing robust commitment control to maximize value for money and ensure fiscal discipline. The fourth is to enhance the efficiency of public spending in social programs and public infrastructure. The fifth is phasing out costly, regressive, and ineffective subsidies in the energy sector, whilst increasing targeted social programs. The sixth is reforming state-owned enterprises that create contingent liability and quasi-fiscal spending. Example is Ghana Cocoa Board and the almighty Electricity Company of Ghana. Your Excellency, strengthening Ghana's fiscal framework by redesigning the fiscal rule, strengthening automatic stabilizers, while containing budget rigidities and revenue earmarking is the seventh one. And to conclude, Mr. President, fellow citizens, we can reset our economy. We can do this. We just have to be disciplined and understand that the short-term benefits we gain today has a long-term consequences on our future. Let's do this for Mother Ghana. Thank you, Excellency.
This is the day. A nation of strength, a nation of pride, a nation of freedom and justice. Ghana, 68 years strong and still rising. This Independence Day, we reflect on our journey, review our progress, and reset for the Ghana we want. A brighter future is within reach by embracing our diversity, nurturing our talents, and working together in unity. We can build a prosperous nation. Let's celebrate with the theme, Reflect, Review, Reset. Key events will include 28th February Crossroads shooting incident, 5th March Presidential Awards for school children, and 6th March Commemorative Guard of Honor at the Presidency. Together, let's strive to build the Ghana we want. Ghana, Ayeko!
Please put your hands together one more time for the Minister of Finance. You know, it's one thing to present over 30 slides of macroeconomic data. It's entirely another thing to do it on national television with your boss, the president, the vice president, all sitting. And you are so focused, you didn't even touch the water I brought to you. Atufosin, put your hands together for him. Amazing. I think if there was any doubt you were ready for this job, that doubt has been dispelled. You are delivering the news, you are not even smiling. Very powerful. But there's hope at the end of the tunnel because the president will be joining us shortly on stage to now articulate his vision for economic transformation, which is an imperative. The foundation has been laid. It's very clear. The president's vision will be key to take us where we have to get to. But before we do that, we're going to invite the National Dance Company of the National Theatre to help us relax a bit before we hear from His Excellency. Let's put our hands together for them. Thank you.
lies the Republic of Ghana, a nation resilient in spirit, rich in culture, and steady in its pursuit of progress. Today, we celebrate a momentous occasion in our nation's history as we welcome the newly elected President, His Excellency, John Dramani Mahama. True nation builder, committed to forging a brighter future for all Ghanaians. John Mahama embodies the pillars of leadership that our nation craves: trustworthiness, reliability, modesty, and above all, truthfulness. From the moment he stepped into the political arena, John Mahama has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to the people of Ghana. His approachable demeanor, paired with his genuine concern for the needs of the Ghanaian, has earned him their trust. A trust that is pivotal for any leader aiming to guide a nation through challenging times.
What I really like about JGM is humility. The man is simply so down to earth, it's unbelievable. He's so humble, it's unbelievable. I really like that about him.
Your mama osro nyame, odo nyame, osro nyame, openi pasem, okita kumapa. Mihu se mihu me nua bema. Oye obi nso a onyiyi nipam. We are akwala o, we are openi o, we are pepeni o, we are twibi o, we are bebi a tribe bia ofi bia your mama te wase. On kase we nye twini, we nye we ni. Your mama nse nipam.
President Mahama is practical. He communicates his issues very, very well. And he understands the Ghanaian politics very well. He understands the Ghanaian people very well. And that is what I like about him.
The brand, John Dramani Mahama, is not just a name. It represents resilience, strength, progress, and empathy.
I believe John Dramani Mahama is loved by many. His personality is so unmatched, and I've heard so much about how he has helped people in their difficult times, even when he wasn't yet a president. His love for God is so admirable, and his love for kids and the youth is so much amazing. And I'm not so surprised my kids get so much excited anytime he shows up on the screen.
I admire his tolerance. In 2016, a lot of people attacked his person. No one got arrested, no one disappeared. He just allowed time to judge, and here we are. That's a good leader.
Mahama's previous tenure as president distinguished him as the infrastructure king. His visionary leadership facilitated projects that have transformed our communities. Roads, schools, and healthcare facilities were built and improved. The energy sector received a big boost with excess megawatts of power, laying the groundwork for sustainable development. But the journey is far from over. Mahama has made a solemn promise to reset Ghana's economy, enabling a collective resurgence toward building the Ghana we truly want. A Ghana of opportunity, prosperity, and accountability. Through his promise of a 24-hour economy, he envisions a nation where jobs are abundant and where people thrive. Picture this: a Ghana where industry operates around the clock, entrepreneurship flourishes, and every citizen has the chance to contribute to and benefit from economic growth. Mahama's roadmap prioritizes creating jobs and ensuring that the nation's wealth is shared across all communities, a true embodiment of economic empowerment. Mahama recognizes that Ghana's strength lies in its people's strength. By fostering an environment of innovation and collaboration, he calls upon entrepreneurs and the youth to embrace their roles as the driving force behind our nation's future. Our strength as a people lies in our diversity. Mahama is dedicated to building a government that upholds accountability and transparency, ensuring every voice is heard and every concern addressed. He invites all Ghanaians on this transformative journey, confident that together we can build a Ghana that not only meets the needs of today, but inspires future generations. As we honor John Dramani Mahama and his new dawn of leadership, we look ahead with hearts full of hope, aligning with his vision for us all. Together, let us embrace this new chapter of leadership, transformation, and growth, forging the path toward a prosperous Ghana for all. Congratulations to the fourth and now the sixth President of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. The journey begins now.
Shall we now rise and on behalf of the chairman of the dialogue, respectfully invite the conference convener, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, for the keynote address. Please put your hands together for Mr. President.
Thank you. Kindly be seated. I was happy when that documentary ended. You can imagine how uncomfortable I was watching myself. But thank you all. Your Excellency, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Her Ladyship Gertrude Esaba Saki-Tokonu, Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, the Right Honorable Edward Do Ajaho, Chairman of the Council of State, members of the Council of State, the Honorable Chief of Staff Julius Debra, the Honorable Minister for Finance Dr. Kaisel Ato Forsen, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of State, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and I call him Uncle Yamson, Chairman of the National Economic Dialogue Planning Committee, the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Pandit Isiama, former governors of the Bank of Ghana, heads of security services, the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Royal Majesty King Takiteku Churu II, the Gamanche, heads of political parties, captains of industry, chiefs and queen mothers, friends from the media, fellow countrymen, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor and a deep sense of responsibility that I welcome you to this National Economic Dialogue. This gathering is more than just a symbolic exercise or the fulfillment of a campaign promise. It is a decisive step in our collective responsibility to reset Ghana's economy, restore confidence, and build the prosperous future we all envision. Today we are here to begin the process of engaging in honest, solution-driven discussions about the challenges we face and the opportunities before us. Our nation stands at a pivotal moment, and the choices we make now will determine the trajectory of our economy for generations to come. As President, I have the honor of leading the conversation on the theme, Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together. This theme reflects our shared commitment to creating an economy that is resilient, inclusive, and built on sustainable growth. It is an invitation to all stakeholders to contribute their expertise, ideas, and dedication to this national effort. Ghana is at a critical crossroads in its economic development. The challenges before us are stark, and the economic distress we face are undeniable. However, our collective resilience, ingenuity, and determination have always been the driving force of our nation's progress. We are not here merely to recount our struggles, nor are we here to resign ourselves to economic stagnation. We are here to seek solutions, to adopt strategies that will put us on a sustainable growth trajectory, and to ensure that we build an economy that works for every Ghanaian. For me, this is not just another policy discussion. It is an urgent call to action. A crucial moment for us as stakeholders to unite with purpose and resolve the challenges that face us. We've gathered here to create a powerful platform where government officials, policymakers, business leaders, economists, industry experts, development partners, and other key figures come together to shape the future of our nation. The insights, diverse perspectives, and actionable recommendations that emerge from these discussions must transcend theoretical frameworks and drive real, impactful decisions that will guide our national economy forward. Throughout our engagement, we will focus on practical strategies to restore macroeconomic stability and pave the way for long-term economic transformation. This includes developing policies that stimulate growth and create sustainable job opportunities for our rapidly growing population. We'll also examine the structural reforms that are necessary to unleash the private sector's potential and make it truly the engine of growth that drives job creation and innovation. Strengthening economic governance institutions will be a key topic of discussion ensuring transparency and accountability at all levels of government, while taking decisive action to combat corruption and other things that hinder our progress. It is vital that as we move towards a more prosperous future, and that the economic gains we achieve are distributed equitably, leaving no one behind and fostering inclusive growth that benefits every sector of society, from the most marginalized communities to the industrial leaders of tomorrow. This dialogue is a defining moment, and our decisions must set the course for a more resilient, prosperous, and equitable economy for generations to come. When I assumed office barely 2 months ago, I inherited an economy that was in a state of deep crisis, one that was weighted down by numerous challenges. The economy was reeling from unprecedented levels of debt, soaring inflation, high unemployment, declining levels of foreign direct investment, and low business confidence. The financial struggles that our nation is facing have not arisen overnight. They have been the result of several years of financial mismanagement, irresponsible borrowing, reckless spending, and weak leadership that failed to address the underlying structural issues within our economy. This pervasive mismanagement culminated in Ghana's defaults on its debt obligations. This marked a devastating milestone for our dear country, spawning a cascade of economic problems that have severely impacted our people. Huge fiscal deficits, excessive government expenditures, and overall financial imprudence have compromised our economic resilience. Credible rating agencies such as Moody's, Fitch, Standard & Poor's have all downgraded our international credit rating consecutively, leading to capital flight and a loss of investor confidence and trust. The Bank of Ghana, instead of serving as an independent monetary authority, became a financing tool for government's excesses, fueling inflation and devaluing our currency. The cost of living has skyrocketed to unbearable levels, leaving families grappling with the inability to afford even the most basic necessities. At the same time, inflation erodes the value of wages and savings, pushing many into a cycle of poverty. Meanwhile, the ill-considered collapse of indigenous banks significantly reduced indigenous presence in Ghana's financial and banking space and led to massive job losses. For too long, Ghana has been plagued by short-term decision-making that prioritizes political expediency over long-term stability. We refuse to accept this as Ghana's reality. We reject the notion that economic hardship must be our norm. We refuse to surrender to the forces of stagnation and decline. We are gathered here today because we believe in Ghana's ability to rise again. We are gathered here to reclaim our country's economic strength and emerge as a beacon of progress on the African continent. Not only a beacon of democracy, but a beacon of economic prosperity. This dialogue here today must serve as that turning point, a forum where we move beyond diagnosing the problems and instead implement concrete, pragmatic solutions to reposition Ghana on a path of sustainable growth. As President, I am committed to ensuring that the lessons learned from this crisis will shape the decisions we make in the years ahead. The mistakes of the past must not define our future, and I vow to do everything in my power to steer this nation towards a brighter and more prosperous path. My fellow citizens, I know that the road to economic recovery will be challenging, but we must not relent in our quest to rebuild the Ghana we all want for the sake of our children and our children's children. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and our country to rebuild an economy that is resilient, that is sustainable and capable of delivering real opportunities for every citizen. My priority as president is to restore macroeconomic stability. We must enforce responsible public financial management and ensure fiscal discipline at all levels of government while working to reduce hardships for our people. Under my leadership, the Bank of Ghana's independence will be safeguarded to implement prudent monetary policies that curb inflation, that stabilize our currency, and rebuilds our foreign reserves. We must never again allow reckless borrowing and excessive government spending to undermine our progress. Fiscal responsibility must become the bedrock of our national development strategy, and every cedi spent must deliver tangible value to the Ghanaian people. We must review our laws. Thank you. We must review our laws to eliminate excessive waste in the procurement of government supplies and projects. Single-source procurement must be the rare exception rather than the norm. We must also set government projects above a certain threshold to value for money audits. And just this morning, I was reviewing some of the procurement reports. And there was this procurement for poultry farmers, 10,000 units of something. And it was single source. The reason for single source was urgency. And one company was giving the contract to supply 10,000 units of whatever it was. The supplier and the person who assembles it was not allowed to bid. And so the company who done it went to the supplier, bought the items for 4,500 and came and sold them for 6,600 to government and walked away with 21 million cedis on that supply. I mean, how can you do this? I mean, it was our own company we're running. How would we do a thing like this? But that is government bleeding. Everybody cutting their pound of flesh. That must stop. Beyond stabilization, we must undertake a fundamental transformation of our economic structure. Ghana's economy has been heavily reliant on the export of raw materials, such as gold, coal, and crude oil, leaving us vulnerable to global price fluctuations and external shocks. We must end this dependence. It is time to transition to a value-added industrialized economy that creates jobs, that boosts exports, and reduces our reliance on imports. Manufacturing and agro-processing must be expanded to ensure that we derive maximum value from our natural resources. Just recently, I think yesterday, the former Chief Justice of this country asked for a review of agreements governing the extractive industry. She describes the current agreements as coming from the Gagisburg era. I agree with her. There must be increased indigenous participation in the exploitation of our natural resources. Ghana must earn more from its natural resource endowment if we create wealth and prosperity for our people. My fellow citizens, agriculture is a vital sector of our economy that must be modernized through mechanization, improved irrigation, and the adoption of technology-driven innovations to enhance productivity and ensure food security. We must also harness the power of technology to bridge the digital divide, ensuring that every Ghanaian, no matter their location or background, has access to the opportunities that the digital economy provides. High-speed internet and robust digital infrastructure are no longer luxuries. They are necessities that fuel economic growth and global competitiveness. My fellow citizens, all this must be underpinned by urgent reforms that promote transparency and hold leadership accountable to the people in whom sovereignty resides. The policies required that promote transparency and hold leadership accountable to the people in whom sovereignty resides. The policies required to bring our economy back on track and sustain the gains made will require multi-stakeholder buy-in. Short-term convenience, which has informed economic decision-making in the past, must give way to long-term and medium and long-term strategic planning, which will help us to avoid the cyclical economic booms and busts that have wreaked havoc on our people. My fellow citizens, I have the political will to see through such reforms, but these reforms must be the product of our collective thinking and synthesization of well-considered proposals from stakeholders in the Ghanaian economy, and that is why we are here this morning. As I had cause to say when I delivered the message on the state of the nation to Parliament last week, consensus building and consultation will be the hallmark of this administration, because I believe that all of us as Ghanaians have a role to play in the development of our dear nation. And I would very much like to be remembered as the president who provided the platform for this to happen. My fellow Ghanaians, a new era is upon us, an era of bold transformation, economic expansion, and limitless opportunities. At the heart of our vision for Ghana's future is the implementation of a 24-hour economy that works for all. This strategy will revolutionize our economic landscape. It will create sustainable jobs and position Ghana as a competitive force on the global stage. Across the world, thriving economies have embraced continuous productivity, ensuring that businesses, industries, and essential services operate around the clock to maximize growth and prosperity. It is time for Ghana to also step forward and break free from the limitations of a traditional economy and embrace a future where opportunity is not confined by time. Under this initiative, this administration is committed to providing incentives and tax breaks for manufacturers and businesses that extend their operational hours, encouraging a shift-based employment system that expands job opportunities. We will strengthen key sectors such as manufacturing, retail, healthcare, logistics, and financial services to support such continuous operation. We will invest in infrastructure, energy, and security to ensure businesses and workers operate in a safe and efficient environment. We will enhance transportation systems to facilitate the movement of workers and goods at all hours of the day and night. We will implement fair labor practices that protect workers' rights while fostering productivity and economic growth. The time for transformation is now. Let us embrace our economic transformation and unlock the full potential of our beloved country. Let us work together to build a resilient, competitive, and a prosperous Ghana. I fully understand that the road ahead will not be easy, but it is a road we must travel. The responsibility for rebuilding Ghana's economy does not rest on government's shoulders alone. It is a shared responsibility that requires the active participation of every Ghanaian. Let us rise to the occasion, take decisive and necessary action, and ensure that we leave behind a legacy of economic resilience, stability, and prosperity for future generations. Let me take this opportunity to thank Uncle Ishmael Yamson and the National Economic Dialogue team for the hard work you have put in bringing us here together for this all-important event. I wish to thank all of you who have taken the opportunity to be here with us this morning for your commitment to this national dialogue and for your dedication to the progress of our nation. Together, we'll build the Ghana we want and a robust economy of our own design and creation. I therefore have the honor and privilege to declare this National Economic Dialogue 2025 duly open.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, the time for transformation is now, and Ghana will rise again when we all work to make it so. You may kindly resume your seats. Thank you so very much, Your Excellency, for your genuine commitment to leading this new chapter in our history. We're almost at the end of our opening ceremony. We'll take a few pictures now, so I'm going to have to invite Your Excellency back just to the base of the stairs, together with the Vice President, the Finance Minister, and then I'll mention the groups to come and join you. So, Your Excellency, please. The Planning Committee members will be the first to take a group photo with His Excellency and the Vice President. Dr. Ishmael Yamson, if you make way to the stairs. Dr. K.Y. Amwako, Nelly Mreku, Professor John Gachi, Anthony Sapong. May I also invite the Chief Justice of the Republic to join the photo op. Mohammed Samara, Ernest de Graft Ejir, and Dr. Nimoy Thompson. The Chairman of the National Council of State, please, Honorable Doa Jaho, kindly join as well.
In these challenging economic times, it's all about the hand that writes the check and the one that earns it.